Well, we're back, and this time I have an extra special guest. You might have thought that the little one was the special guest, but this is a big deal, right? So, March 28th, I wrote a blog article about our anniversary. I did it 2 years ago when we were married for 10 years, and I did it again. We have hit 12 years. That would be 4,383 days married. And there's the byproduct of the marriage crawling around on the floor. So I recently watched and finished the Love is Blind series on Netflix. And it was really fascinating for me because this whole idea of people blindly falling in love and they're supposed to get married and before that live together and just live happily ever after. But when the couples made their way to Mexico, Vanessa Lachey, Nick Lachey's wife, asked the contestants a question. She said, "Is love enough?" And I was really struck by that question because it kind of took a little play on the title, Love is Blind, but really asking them, is love really enough? Right. So I wanted to write about that. And what I did was I took 6 quotes from a few participants. Lauren got, I think, 3 different quotes. And I took a quote and talked about those in my writing. So I wanted to ask my spouse his thoughts on these quotes because I did not include him in this particular blog where I did 2 years ago. So the first quote that I wrote about came from Lauren. She said, "Being in a marriage kind of changes everything." And my little lesson in that paragraph was to embrace the change. So what are your thoughts? Does being married kind of change everything?
It changes a lot. I don't know if it changed everything, but it changed a lot. And maybe it didn't change everything because we had already had so many conversations about what we wanted. Mm-hmm. We had been together for a while. Mm-hmm. So it did change some things, but we had been preparing for it. So I'm not sure that it changed everything, but it changed the things that matter, I guess.
So did you embrace the change?
Yeah, I didn't have a choice.
I mean, you could have said, no, I'm not going to embrace the change and fought against it.
Yes, I embraced the change, but it wasn't a overnight thing. It's still a process. Like I'm still embracing the change even now. So yeah, you embrace it, but it does change a lot.
Stop, child, please. The next quote came from Giannini. What she said, she was all in love and all enamored with her, I guess now their boyfriend. They didn't officially get married. But she said, "Love is a beautiful thing." And it was just said in such a real starry way, right? I think if she could have been a cartoon character, you would have seen like hearts and bows and arrows kind of shooting out of her. So my lesson for that one was that it takes work to make it beautiful, right? And that beauty is in the eye of the beholder. So, what do you think about that? Is love beautiful for you?
Yes. It's in the eye of the beholder. What that part means to me is like every relationship has to be beautiful for the people in that relationship. So it's been beautiful for me, yes. But when you add that part about it being in the eye of the beholder, I think it really depends on those two people. Like, if it's beautiful for them, then that's really all that matters. Other people may say, well, that may agree, or may say that there are things wrong, or may say that they shouldn't be together. But those aren't the people in the relationship. So if we find it beautiful, then it's beautiful.
That's all that matters.
Right, and we determine what beautiful is for us when it comes to our relationship.
I like that. Deep. The next one comes from Lauren again. This is the second of the third Lauren quotes.
You like Lauren?
I mean, it's not that I like Lauren. She just ended up having... I did keep a lot of quotes from a lot of people, but I narrowed it down to 6. And I was kind of struck by Lauren's quotes. So Lauren was very hesitant about getting married. But she said, what will be left behind in this new phase of my life? She kind of initially looked at marriage as lost. Her parents are divorced, and so she only had that, at least in her household, to be able to look at, whereas her husband's parents are married, if I remember correctly. But my kind of silver lining in this was that nobody loses when you stay committed to doing the work. So again, she had never been married before or been in a type of relationship like that was leading to marriage, but she was really scared of what she was going to lose. So, were you scared?
Not of what I was going to lose. I think, is she also the one who said the other one about
being in a marriage kind of changes everything?
No. Maybe it's
losing bits and pieces of her that were once there. Yes.
Right. So I looked at those two together because, like, when thinking about what you might lose, so that was big for me. Only because I'm a highly quiet, reserved, independent type of person, and having to now open up and share my whole life with someone was a little, daunting at first. But, again, through our relationship, it got easier, going back to that whole embracing the change. And if this is something I'm committed to do, then you got to do it. But that part, I think, even still to this day, there are parts that are you try to hold on to some sense of who you believe you are, even though that evolves over time, and it evolves with the person that you're with, but you also still have some parts of yourself that you don't want to lose. And I think that's important to be honest about, because if you shouldn't be with someone who's going to ask you to give up some things about yourself that are core to you. And that was good for us. We knew who each other were. I've never asked you to change some things that I know just are part of who you are. I'm sure you would love some things for me to change about me, but it came with the package.
Yeah.
Right? And so, yes, I wouldn't say scared, but that part, that was the biggest part of the change that needed to be embraced. Because you do lose some parts.
Right.
But I think it's also important to hold on to some parts that really define you as a person individually, because you got to be a whole person in order to be with somebody else. Yeah, that resonated with me. Those two together, thinking about what you'll lose, but then also the concern about losing bits and pieces of the self. That was the only loss that I really experienced or thought about experiencing. Everything else was a gain in terms of sharing a life with someone, but just being able to still be, me.
Right.
With another person. And then you add a child, in the mix, and it's even more.
Right. Trying to remember who you are
Exactly.
all at the same time. Right. So
honor who the other person is too, because again, I can't try to force you to change while still trying to hold on to who I want to be. So that's a part of it also.
The next quote comes from Jessica. You haven't watched the show, but Jessica was a person, or is a person, at least on the show, that many people have very strong feelings about because of how she behaved. But she had one quote that I wholeheartedly agreed with. She said, "This isn't going to be butterflies and rainbows all the time." So she didn't necessarily, I think, show her most authentic self, or maybe she really did, but I really agree with her on that every day is not a honeymoon. Every day is not peaches and cream. It's some days where it's kind of routine, and we got to just get through the day, or kind of challenges come up. But did you have you looked at marriage as being not all butterflies and rainbows, or this is going to be peaches and cream all the time?
No, not at all. No. So I agree with that too. We talked about this before, but yeah, you have to expect that it won't be all butterflies and rainbows. I think that's a little naive going into anything. Anyone who's lived should know that it's not all positive or all sunny all the time.
Right.
But at the same time, you figure out ways to deal with that. And again, what helped us, I believe, is the fact that we were together for a while, So we had been through things. We saw some storms and saw some, cloudy skies and all that kind of thing, and figured out ways to deal with them. And earlier in our relationship, we dealt with them the way we knew how, and then we learned how to deal with them together.
Right.
So then by the time we got married and those things started to happen, we were able to weather those storms. And, we've been blessed to not have too many storms.
Right. Or at least big ones.
Right.
Or self-created storms.
Yeah. So,
right.
But knowing and recognizing that those things will happen, I think, is a part of just living. So you're going to join yourself to another person, you got to expect that those things are going to happen.
I would agree. And the final quote came from not a participant on the show, but actually somebody's brother. So one of the guys, Barnett, they have a portion where they meet the person's family and they're able to learn more about them. So Barnett's brother pulled him aside when his at that time fiance came with him, and he took him outside. And his brother is married, and I think he'd been married for a couple of years before that. But he was trying to really appeal to him about why he possibly shouldn't get married to this girl that he didn't know. But what he said was, man, marriage is about stopping, forgetting about yourself, and making sure that you put the other person before your needs in everything that you do. So ultimately, I took from that it's not all about you. And so sometimes people can enter marriage just for the wedding, right? Just for the baby, just for the photo op, just to say, I have a husband or a wife. But it's so much more than that in terms of forgetting about yourself, but putting somebody else first. Has that been easy for you?
No. Not at all. But so if the question is, do I agree with the statement? I think, I agree with the statement. But is it easy? No, because, we're not, some people maybe, but some of us aren't wired that way. So, to always have to consider what someone else feels, how they will receive something, and all that is hard. And it's not to say that outside of a marriage, like, you're just a not compassionate person, you don't care about other people. But it's different when you're talking about just like, I'm a caring person in general. This is really like sacrificing self to say this is what's best for the family, or this is better for the other person. And sometimes it's hard to know when you have to, when you're in that situation,
when to sacrifice.
Yeah, because it's not always, like, it's not about, I don't know if I take it literally that you never have concern for yourself. It's always, I think, I get the point that's being made, but it's not a literal statement like you never have care for yourself. Right. That's not reasonable. At the same time, you have to be aware enough to know when you're in that situation. Like, is this something that it doesn't matter if I do me, or is this a situation where it absolutely matters, and what I need to do is what the other person wants to do,
or to know when to compromise.
Yeah, or to know when to compromise. It could be something as simple as, like, what movie do we go see? You know what I mean? To which house do we buy?
What you trying to say?
I'm just saying.
What you trying to say?
I watch many a movie that I'd rather, But, again, and that's an everyday decision. Yes. Because you can find yourself in that situation every day, and sometimes it doesn't matter as much, and then sometimes it does, and then you might be in a situation where you think it doesn't matter as much, but because of the dynamics of whatever's happening right then and there, it does. And you just got to be aware of that. And so, to the brother's point about, like, not knowing someone, like, I think you got to know those things before you say I do. Get married to somebody. Like, you have to know how to read the situation, and all that just comes with time. And we had the benefit of time, so I think that helped us a lot.
So the ultimate question that I asked in what I wrote was, is love enough? And I venture to say it's not. I think that you need many more things. You need respect, you need loyalty, you need good communication, you need honesty, you need compassion. You need all these other pieces. And love is an important piece to the puzzle, but it's not, for me, I didn't view it as being just enough to be able to make a healthy marriage work. So, yeah.
I think it's another one of those things you can't take literally. Like, no, it's not enough. But all those other things you mentioned, I think love is the driver for all those other things. I do those things because I love you. Whereas, if you don't have love, it's harder to do all those other things. So in and of itself, is it enough? No. If you take that sentence or that statement literally. But without it, you can't have anything else.
Yeah. So thank you for joining me.
This wasn't that bad.
See? I made it easy. I broke you in real good. Maybe I'll have you back next time. So thanks, Harold.
All right. Thank you.
All right. Thanks.